He noticed the knives first. They were impossible to miss, each one meticulously placed, gleaming under the dim light. The craftsmanship was exquisite, the blades razor-sharp, each knife telling a story of its own. Gleaming razor-sharp, displayed like trophies in a locked cabinet. It was as if they were waiting for their moment to shine, to be admired and feared in equal measure.
My antique treasures, aren't they beautiful? Each piece has a history, a soul. They are more than just objects. They are a part of me.
Her eyes sparkled with a fervor he found unsettling. There was a passion there, a deep-seated obsession that went beyond mere admiration. Her obsession wasn't just a quirk. It was a consuming fire, an all-encompassing need that drove her every action. It was an itch she couldn't scratch, a hunger that seemed to emanate from her core. It was as if the antiques were a part of her very being, an extension of her soul. Then there was her aversion to eating in public. It wasn't just a preference. It was a deep-seated fear, an anxiety that gripped her whenever she was in a social setting. Restaurants, cafes, even family gatherings, she always found an excuse. She would isolate herself, finding solace in her antiques rather than the company of others. Claimed she wasn't hungry, had a headache, anything to avoid taking a bite in front of others. It was as if the very act of eating in public was a betrayal of her true self.
I used to brush it off, telling myself it was just Eliza being Eliza, her quirks making her unique. But over time, those quirks began to feel more like red flags. But a seed of doubt had been planted. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more, something darker lurking beneath the surface.
He tried to ignore the whispers in the back of his mind, the nagging feeling that something was terribly wrong. It was a shadow that followed him, growing darker with each passing day, the nagging feeling that something was terribly wrong. It was a constant presence, a weight on his shoulders that he couldn't shake. He loved Eliza, or at least he thought he did. But love can be blinding, a fragile veil obscuring the truth until it's too late. He wondered if he truly knew her at all. But love can be blinding, a fragile veil obscuring the truth until it's too late. And as the veil began to lift, he feared what he might see on the other side. Eliza was a creature of contradictions. By day, she was a picture of domesticity, baking bread, tending her garden, her laughter echoing through their quiet home. But at night, a different Eliza emerged.
She would devour true crime documentaries, her eyes glued to the screen, her breath catching at the gruesome details. I'd catch her staring at nothing, a distant look in her eyes, her fingers tracing the edges of her coffee mug as if it were a long-forgotten memory.
Just thinking about dinner,
She'd say, her voice a notch too high. He wanted to believe her, to dismiss his unease as mere paranoia. But the whispers persisted, growing louder with each passing day. They swirled around him, a chorus of doubt and suspicion that he couldn't silence. The journal was tucked away in the attic, hidden beneath floorboards and layers of dust. It had been there for years, forgotten by time, waiting for someone to uncover its dark secrets. He found it by accident, its worn leather spine peeking out from the darkness. The attic was a treasure trove of forgotten memories, but this journal was different. It called to him, almost as if it had a life of its own. He hadn't meant to pry, but the whispers had become a roar, demanding his attention. The air grew thick with anticipation as he reached for the journal, his heart pounding in his chest.
The words inside were like venom, seeping into my soul, poisoning my perception of the woman I thought I knew. Each page turned revealed more horrors, each sentence more disturbing than the last. Graphic confessions of murder, detailed accounts of dismemberment, chilling descriptions of cannibalistic rituals. Each sentence was a hammer blow to my sanity. The journal was a catalog of nightmares, a testament to the darkness that lurked within Eliza.
Eliza's elegant cursive filled the pages, her words a stark contrast to the horrors they described. The neat, flowing script seemed almost beautiful, a cruel irony given the monstrous content it conveyed. She wrote about her victims with a detached curiosity, her tone matter-of-fact, devoid of remorse. It was as if she were documenting an experiment, not recounting the brutal end of human lives. It was as if she were recounting a trip to the grocery store, not the systematic dismantling of human lives. Her indifference was chilling, a stark reminder of the evil that can hide behind a mask of normalcy.
I slammed the journal shut, my stomach churning, my mind reeling from the sheer depravity I had just encountered. The room seemed to spin around me, the weight of what I had read pressing down on my chest.
The whispers had been right all along. They had warned me, tried to prepare me for the truth, but nothing could have truly prepared me for this. Eliza was a monster hiding in plain sight. Her facade of normalcy had fooled everyone, but the journal revealed her true nature. She was a predator, a wolf in sheep's clothing, and now her secrets were laid bare. Confrontation was inevitable, a storm brewing on the horizon.
He showed her the journal, his hands trembling, his voice a mix of anger and disbelief.
To his surprise, she didn't deny it. She didn't even flinch.
That was another life.
She said calmly, her voice steady, her gaze unwavering.
A dark chapter I've closed. I have changed. My love for you has cleansed my soul. I would never hurt a living being again.
He wanted to believe her desperately. He clung to her words like a lifeline, willing himself to accept her explanation, to ignore the gnawing fear that refused to be silenced. He told himself it was possible to outrun the past, to bury the darkness and emerge into the light. But deep down, he knew that some stains never fade, some wounds never heal. They fester and grow, waiting for the opportune moment to resurface. Life went on, or at least a semblance of it. He tried to forget, to pretend that the journal and its contents were nothing more than a figment of his imagination. But the neighborhood was changing. People were disappearing. A jogger vanished from the park. A young woman never made it home from her evening shift. Fear snaked its way through the community, a silent predator stalking the streets. He couldn't shake the feeling that Eliza was somehow involved. The dates of the disappearances coincided with Eliza's restless nights, nights when he'd find her staring out the window, a hungry look in her eyes. He tried to dismiss his suspicions, to convince himself it was just a coincidence, but the shadows of doubt lingered, growing longer with each passing day. The whispers had returned, louder than ever, their message chillingly clear. Eliza was still hunting. He woke to an eerie silence. Eliza was gone. The room felt colder than usual, an unsettling chill creeping into his bones. He glanced around, disoriented, trying to shake off the remnants of a disturbing dream that now seemed all too real. Her side of the bed was cold, the sheets undisturbed. It was as if she had never been there at all. The emptiness beside him was a stark contrast to the warmth they once shared, a warmth that now felt like a distant memory. He found her in the kitchen, standing before her collection of knives, each blade gleaming ominously under the dim light. The sight was both mesmerizing and terrifying, a macabre display of her hidden obsessions, her fingers tracing the curve of a particularly wicked-looking blade. The way she caressed it sent shivers down his spine, a silent testament to the darkness that lurked within her. Her eyes met his, and for the first time he saw the truth reflected in their depths. Those eyes, once filled with love and tenderness, now held a cold, calculating gaze. It was a look that spoke of hidden agendas and unspoken horrors. The love, the remorse, the promises of change, it had all been a lie. Every tender moment, every whispered promise was nothing more than a carefully constructed facade. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut, leaving him breathless and reeling. She had never stopped being the monster he had glimpsed in the pages of her journal. Those pages, filled with dark thoughts and sinister plans, were a window into her true nature, a nature she had hidden so well.
You were right to be afraid. Her voice was a chilling whisper, each word dripping with a sinister truth that he could no longer deny. I tried to be different for you. Her tone softened, a hint of regret lacing her words. But it was too late for regrets, too late for change. But some hungers never die. They only grow stronger. Her eyes darkened, the hunger within them unmistakable. It was a hunger that had been growing, festering, waiting for the right moment to be unleashed.
He was her next target, the final course in her macabre feast. The realization was a cold, hard truth that settled over him like a shroud. He had been living on borrowed time, a fool blinded by love and denial. Every warning sign, every red flag had been ignored in the name of love. And now he was paying the price. As Eliza took a step toward him, her smile a grotesque parody of affection, he knew that the whispers had been right all along. The smile that once brought him joy now filled him with dread. He was the prey and she was the hunter, ready to claim her prize. The dynamic had shifted and there was no escaping the inevitable. The hunter's gaze was fixed on him and there was no turning back.